a series right now, a series of messages that we're calling Sex and Money, and the creative team just kind of cut me off. I had all these great names for the series, and they're like, nope, we're going to go Sex and Money, and so that's what we're going with. And really, it's the two most engaging topics that I think we could talk about, because everybody deals with them. We think about sex, we think about money, we have these desires, and what we identified just a couple weeks ago is that both of these things are appetites. They're appetites, and they're among other appetites. We have other appetites as well, but these are appetites, and just like any appetite, it replenishes itself, and it's never fully or finally satisfied. In fact, your appetites know one word, and that one word is more. That's the only word your appetite knows, more. If your appetite's always going to tell you, I want more. And so I want to just tell you a quick story, and this is a fictional story. Okay, I'm going to make it up. I better just be upfront about that. Jesus did this all the time. He called them parables, so I'm going to make up my own parable today for you to kind of illustrate what these appetites look like. And this is a fictional story, but it is a story that does happen, and I think even though it may not fit you identically, I think you'll be able to follow the principle. Okay, I want you to imagine for a moment that you are a 13-year-old boy. All right, now for about half of you in this room, that's going to be really odd, okay, but I want you to just go with me. All right, just pretend for a moment you're a 13-year-old boy, and you're starting to become aware of the world. You're looking around, and you're in junior high, and there's that pecking order in junior high. There's a cool table, and there's this table, and there's that table, and you're not quite sure totally what table you fit in, but you want to be great. You want to do something wonderful, and of course you're trying to balance your appetites, but you want to do something significant. You want to be significant. You don't want to just blend in, and you don't want to be overlooked. You want to be important. And so you develop this desire to become a rock star. All right, that's your desire. You're like, you know what? I want to become a rock and roll legend. And you're nobody. You're just from this sort of insignificant family, average income. You guys don't drive any great car. In fact, if you lived in a certain era, you had a station wagon. All right, your family had a station wagon or a minivan, and that's just kind of what you did. And yet you didn't want a station wagon, minivan. You wanted to, drive a sports car, and you wanted to have the best looking woman on your arm, and you wanted to go anywhere that you wanted to go, and all those kind of things. And so what do? You do what any 13-year-old does. You start a band. All right, you start a band, and you get your friends together, whether they can play or not. You guys just start, and you learn, and you go to some garage, and you guys start practicing, and you crank the music way up because mom kicked you out of the house. You're making too much noise, and so you're in the garage, and you guys are rocking out, and over time, you guys just play enough, you get pretty good. You take a few lessons here and there, and you actually get really good, and people start to hear, and you do some recordings, and you start to get some gigs. You go to some different places, and you start to develop some popularity. In fact, one day, as you get older, you're walking down the street, and somebody notices you. They're like, hey, I heard you guys play. You're in that band, right? And you're like, yeah, that was me. And you're like, I can't believe it. People are starting to recognize me. They're starting to notice me. And finally, your band finally gets noticed by somebody significant. And they say, I think we ought to record you guys. You guys have any original music? And you're like, tons. We have enough for 20 albums, that we made in the garage. And yet they put together, and they get you with a professional, and you put out your very first ever album. Now, you're not platinum yet. You're not anything super special, but you're signed. And you're making a little bit of money, and now you actually get invited to go on tour as an opening act. And so you and your boys, you all get in, and now you're not like living glitz and glamour. You know what you're doing? You're in a 15-passenger van, okay? You're driving in a 15-passenger van. You're staying in Motel 6, okay? They're leaving the light on for you. At the end of the event, at the end of the gig, you're winding up your own cords, and you're packing it up, but you're on tour, man. You're on your first tour, starting to gain some notoriety, starting to make a little bit of money, and then one day you kind of really hit it, where you actually, a well-known band invites you to come open for them, and they're playing much bigger shows. Like tens of thousands of people are coming to hear them. Not you, they don't really know about you yet, but because of this exposure, it's a break, it's a huge break, and now your music's starting to get out there, and something crazy happens. For the first time, you're driving down the road, and you hear you on the radio. Craziest thing. You can't believe it. You're just listening to the radio, and all of a sudden you hear your song on the radio, and you start to look online and you're seeing your videos and your songs are getting a lot of hits and you're beginning to climb the charts, and now the record company comes to you and says, we're going to do another record and we want you to headline a tour. You become that famous. And when you hit that point of fame, now things are starting to happen, like you're getting up in crowds of tens of thousands and they're singing your songs back to you, and there's a high that comes with that, a high. As you see people know who you are, and everywhere you go, and your name is on television, and you're starting to really get some exposure, and you're starting to make some real money. You're starting to all of a sudden become very attractive to the opposite sex. And now you're able to buy the things you want to buy and live in the places you want to live and go the places you want to go. And you go ahead and you continue to have success and you continue to hone your craft and you get to the very top of the heap. I'm talking number one in the world. And now you've been able to have sex with who you want to have sex with. You've got money more than you ever imagined. You have fame more than you ever imagined back in the garage band. You attained everything that you wanted to attain, except you got to the top and it just isn't what you thought it was going to be. You just can't get high enough anymore off of the crowd singing your songs. Now it's just another crowd of 10,000. Now it's just another crowd of 20,000. It's just another gig. It's just another album. It's just another platinum. It's just another plaque. It's just another woman, just another car. So I don't just have one car, I have two cars, and eventually I have like 12 cars, and I got to get a 12-car garage, and I've got not one house, but I've got 3 houses. Eventually, there's nothing. There's no sexual experience. There's no amount of money. There's no accolade or award or Grammy award or recognition from my peers that will just do it for me. I just don't get high off of that anymore. So now what I do is I go to artificial means. I'm going to start shooting stuff in my arm or shooting stuff up in my nose. I'm going to do something because I just can't get high anymore. And what happens is eventually even that doesn't get me high anymore. I've shot my appetite so far that eventually I do what's called overdose. So even the dose of artificial stimulant doesn't do it for me, that I have to go that far. I wish that this was just a totally fictional story. Like I wish that this had never happened, except it does happen. Like literally happens. Like feels like every time we turn on the news, there's somebody who's at the top of the heap that's dying with a needle in their arm or that's falling in some massive way. And this isn't just in the music world. This could be in the entertainment world. It's in the business world. It's in every single arena of the world, and it's because there's a principle to be learned. There's a seduction in our appetites. Our appetites just scream at us, more, give me more, give me more. And we can sit back and go, oh, those stupid celebrities, oh, those crazy business. Oh, if they had all that stuff, why couldn't they just be happy? And we can shake our heads and go back to our lives, or we can pause for just a moment, fly up to 10,000 feet. We can actually have an honest evaluation of ourselves and go, wait a second, this isn't me. This isn't me. It's smart to learn from your mistakes. It's even smarter to learn from somebody else's mistakes. Some of you, as I sit here and talk about this message, I'm going to preach it, and you're going to just be like, this is going to be resonating with you. You're going to go, yes, I've lived that. And some of you, this is going to actually turn a light on for you, and you're going to go, that's where I'm headed. So today I want to talk to you specifically about the appetite of money, but I want us to keep in mind that money is an appetite, and I want us to, do the Matrix thing, whatever pill, you know what I mean, that Keanu Reeves took, that made him wiser. I don't remember the color, but whatever that color pill was, we're going to take that one today, because we want to look at our appetites, and we want to look at our culture, and we want to look at where this is headed. I want you to think of it like this, okay? Your appetites, and we're going to talk about money today, it's kind of like these 3 cups. So you come out of school, you begin your first earning potential. You've not maximized your earning potential. You've just started. You're making a little bit of money. You make a little bit of money, okay? But you think you're rich because you were in college and you weren't making jack. You were like, when I was in college, I saw the whole world. I saw dollars weren't dollars to me. They were items on the dollar menu at McDonald's. I was like, man, that's like 5 cheeseburgers. So anyways, you get out and you make a little bit of money, right? You make some money. And so what do? You make just enough money really to live in your first job. So most of the time, you start out in this first job and you're like, it's going to really take me kind of maximizing my potential to be able to sort of live. So what do? You take your first paycheck and your first capacity financially and you stretch it to its limit. Okay, so this thing's totally full. And if I mess around at all, it spills because I don't really have any margin in there, right? I'm pretty much at the top. So if anything goes wrong, it spills out. But I don't make that much money. But I think, one day I want to get here, That's like the big time. That's the guy making the big chunks. That's the corner office. That's where I want to go. Eventually I want to get here. And I start out here, I start out in the garage band. I start out at the beginning and I start to work hard. And I think, man, if I could just get that promotion and maybe even set this certain goal, if I could make 6 figures. Man, if I could just make 6 figures, man, I would feel rich. I would feel good. I'd be able to, change the logo on my vehicle. I'd be able to go to the next level. I'd be able to buy a house. Just whatever it is from a financial standpoint. Money carries with it, the idea of power, the idea of freedom, the idea of, being independent. So this would enable me to do that. So you work hard and you slave at the desk and you do the things you don't want to do to get to the place that you do want to go. And eventually somebody notices you and they see how hard you're working and they say, you know what, we have a job for you. We want to promote you to the next level. So now you take your current bills and your current life and you pour it into this next thing because they increased your capacity. So, you're going to make significantly more money than you make now. But of course, you don't stop there. If I just took my current rent and my current car and my current life into this, I could dance the, Macarena or whatever with this thing and it's not going to spill out because I have, tons of margin there. But no, I'm not going to do that. Are you kidding me? Now I have an opportunity to really flex on the world. I can show the world that I'm not just, right out of school anymore. I'm actually somebody. And so what do? We pour some more in there, We pour some more in there because this is kind of like going to the next level, When I was back here, I was in the garage, I'm looking to be the rock star. So this is my next level. So what I do is instead of leaving myself margin, I go and I trade in a car that's not broken for another car that's not broken, and I get a better logo on it, something that's more prestigious, and I increase my amount of bills, and I come here, and now actually I'm really not much better off I'm really not any better off than I was here. I'm just driving something that smells a little better. I'm living something that I'm a little more proud of. I'm a little happier when somebody asks me what I do for a living, that I can spout it off and hopefully impress them. And so then I get to this next level. Now think about this. This is human nature. We're always looking, boom, next cup, because at the next cup, I know exactly what I can afford. And at the next cup, I know exactly what I'll be capable of and how much power I'll have. And so I just think, now, what I'll actually do sometimes is I'll even believe the lie, the appetite lie, that when I get to that cup, I'm actually going to feel great. But here's the thing about appetites. Appetites are adaptable, like they adapt and then they grow. For example, you have a certain appetite. You have a certain feeling about the beach. I just said beach, and like half of you just smiled at me. I just said beach. Everyone's like, oh, beach. Beach, yes, like beach. That's what you do. You spend money to go to the beach, and you just can't wait to go to the beach. The whole time you're flying to the beach, and you're driving to the beach, you're thinking about the beach. You're thinking about your toes being in the sand, and the palm trees, and the seagulls, and all this good stuff. But guess what? You go to the beach, if you're at the beach all the time, eventually the beach just becomes a beach. You adapt to the beach. If you lived at the beach, you wouldn't feel like you feel when you and I go to the beach from Ohio, okay? When Ohio people go to the beach, we lose our minds because we're at the beach. We're like, oh my gosh, it's the closest thing to heaven that Ohio people have. We get a little whiff, of the pearly gates when we're on the sand. All right? And so, but yet if you move down there and you live, let's just say you lived on the beach, I'm telling you, eventually you would just adapt. It would just be the beach. It would become a normal Tuesday because that's what we do. And that's what happens with beauty. That's what happens with images. Think about this, okay? Now, I'm going to go a little bit old fogey for a minute, all right? Would you just hang with me? I'm going to go a little bit. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what my grandchildren are going to have to deal with, okay? This is life. When I grew up, until I got into junior high, there was no internet. So I literally had never heard, I didn't know what the internet was. Somebody said, oh, have you gone online? What are you talking about? I was in 8th grade, I think it was, and somebody went online. So I didn't know what that was. We didn't have cable TV when I grew up until I think I was in high school. So it was like the whole rabbit ear deal, and Dad's like, okay, go mess with the rabbit ears. And then when my hands were on it, he got a clear picture. He's like, just stay there, just hang there, and I'm like this, what I'm saying? Trying to get my dad a good picture of Peter Jennings or whatever. So like that was what I grew up in. Now think about this. The world has changed dramatically. We can't be stupid. We have to be honest about it. It's changed so much that there's become a saturation or an overexposure of everything. This is why we have a generation coming up that's unimpressible. They're not impressed because you can't do anything that hasn't been seen on YouTube or done better on YouTube. We didn't have YouTube, right? When something like there's like a single viral video on YouTube, no big deal, billion people watch it. Back in the day, if you played that, we'd all have been like, oh, that's awesome. But there's gajillions of them now, and so it's overexposure. Pictures, right? I mean, pictures like something like a beautiful sunset or a beautiful image of wildlife, 20 years ago, it was like, oh, I've never seen a picture like that. Well, now you turn on Instagram and people are like professional photographers with their phone. Through a filter, you see more images. You're like, oh. Remember the first time you saw really good wedding pictures? Or even like 10 years ago when people started doing really creative wedding pictures? Oh man, I've never thought of putting a couch in the woods. That's so creative. Like I was just like, oh my gosh. My mind was just, my mind just blew up. I was like, a couch in the woods and a bride sitting on it, staring off in the distance. Who thinks of these things? And people came out with that, okay? And we're all like, oh. And now it's like, everybody's got great pictures. We have been overexposed. And because of the overexposure, what happens is it shoots your appetites and it shoots you're overstimulated. And so now it's just like, eh. Now, what does this have to do with my money? It has everything to do with my money. It has everything to do with my money. Because now I'm going to have so many temptations to try to do this. And it just added cups. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was like, babe, I bet you, growing up as a kid, I bet you I only saw inside of 20 people's house. You didn't see inside of people's house. I had about, 10 friends. I went to all their houses. There was a handful of people in our church. I went to my cousins' houses. I probably went into 20 houses. Everybody else I drove by on the outside. I didn't even know what the inside of everybody's house looks like. Today you go on Pinterest and you see inside of, 500,000 houses, and what all they do. So now I'm like, well, I want that. And I want one of those, and I want two of those. And I didn't know when somebody bought a new car until I happened to see it. Now, I know everybody that's got a new car. I didn't know when somebody got a new outfit. I didn't know when somebody was on vacation to this place or that place. I didn't know what was going on. I've been so exposed. We've been so overexposed that we've shot ourselves full of stimuli, of images and experiences, and now we're just unimpressible. But what happens is money becomes one of these things that I keep going, I got to get my appetite some more. It's like the rock star. If I can just get more, so what do? I go to the next level. Oh, I get the next level, my appetite adjusts, I want more. I go to the next level, my appetite adjusts, and I just want more. Until there's just a cup, until I hit my full capacity, and then that's not enough. So what do? I got to go to artificial stimuli. I got to shoot something else out. I got to reach for more. Now, I don't know about you, but this conversation makes me want to move out in the woods and listen to folk music. You know what I'm saying? That's not the answer. I'm just telling you, it's not the answer. The answer is not to move out to the woods and listen to folk music? The answer is this. The answer is a movement of people living counterculture, okay? Our culture does not need us to look at this, become wise to it, and go, yeah, dude, I could definitely do that. Because this could be rock star, and this could be CEO, and this could be partner at the firm, or this could be, administrator at the school. This could be whatever I want it to be. And to understand that when I get there, it's just never big enough. So we're like way wise to look and go, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different. But what we can't do is extract ourselves from the culture. Our culture needs a new group of people looking at money, looking at appetites, looking at sex, looking at life differently, and then living in it. Because there's something in everybody, okay, when you're just so overstimulated with everything, you're like, I do think the answer is less. Actually, I think I need some peace. I think I need a little peace and quiet. Instead of trying to get one more big cup and trying to pour a little bit more in it. Because when you get to a place where you're so full that just any activity spills you out, you're like, I don't know, I'm kind of sick of that. So here's the deal. When it comes to your money is a huge part of this conversation because what people use is they use money to get here. And money just becomes another one of these cups. And so I spend myself to the next level. And I live with no margin, and I can't even be generous. And I have no freedom, and I'm just worried and make all kinds of bad decisions off of that. Today I'm not going to talk to you about how to get rich. I'm not going to talk to you about how to make more money. I'm not going to talk to you about how to get more stuff. Here's what I'm going to talk to you about. The next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about financial freedom. And here's what I want to start with, this idea that financial freedom is not about getting more money, it's about getting more perspective. Let me say that again. Financial freedom is not about getting more money. Financial freedom is about getting more perspective. I'm going to just throw some stats at you and some thoughts at you to kind of calibrate you and to get you some more perspective. If you're in this room today, you came in and some of us came in feeling tight financially. You came in feeling like, man, I'm not where I want to be financially. I'm not in good shape financially. Here's just a little quick perspective for you. If you make $48,000 a year or more, $48,000 a year or more, you are in the top 1% of wage earners in the world. The international poverty line in US dollars is $1.25 a day. Now, a couple years ago, we took a team to Haiti. I've been to Haiti. If you've been around, I talk about Haiti all the time. It might be annoying, I don't care. This is really important for this conversation. So here's the deal. I'm getting ready to go to Haiti, right? I'm preparing for the trip, and I'm like, we were going to do this work trip. We planted like 17 trees in this village that gave fruit, so there'd be an ongoing source of food, malnourished. Haiti's tons of people. Unemployment is super high. Poverty is extreme as it is anywhere in the world. And so I'm getting ready to go on this trip. Now I go out, and I'm getting ready to buy work gloves. And I have these options. I can buy like a 5-pack of work gloves for like $5. Or I can buy this one pair of work gloves for $10. And I was like, I'm just going to buy this 5-pack of work gloves for $5, whatever, and just leave them all there and just give them out and everything. And then I was looking, and there was this one pair of work gloves that were pretty sweet. You know, they had like this leather on them, they had two-tone, and then they had like, they're really grippy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh man, these things are really nice. And then I was like, I probably could even rock these with like a jacket, these are kind of sweet. And so I thought, I think I'm actually gonna go, I'm gonna spring for the good work glove. And then of course I compromise in my mind, I'm like, it'll be good, these will last me longer, and I'll bring these home, and I'll probably be an old man still wearing these work gloves, and working around, and my wife may need them too, you know what I'm saying? The classic. Oh, Shaylin will probably need them. Okay, so anyway, so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get, so I spring for the $10 work gloves. and I go over to Haiti, and I've got these work gloves in my pocket, and we go out, and we start working this one day, and we're working at this school. Basically, I'm just hauling wheelbarrows full of concrete and carrying buckets of concrete to help build a wall at this school. So we're there, and we're doing this, and work all day. Well, there's this guy, this Haitian guy that was working along next to me, and this guy's working like a dog. I mean, he was working hard. And in Haiti, it's blazing hot. I'm talking super hot. And this guy's right next to me just working. And I barely knew any Creole, which is like their language. I learned just enough to be dangerous, And so I'm just going around, I'm like yelling out phrases in Creole, and we're high-fiving. This is my new friend, okay? So we're hanging out, we're working our tails off. And so we get to the end of the day, and the guy comes up to me and says like a paragraph in Creole. So at the end of the day, we're all covered in sweat. We're all covered in concrete. And he says this whole sentence, and I'm like, so I go and get the interpreter. I say, I don't know what he's trying to say. So the guy says, he goes, he wants you to pay him. I was like, excuse me? He's like, he wants you to pay him. I was like, what do you? I thought he's working with the crew that we're working with. The guy's like, no, man. This guy showed up and started working, not knowing if he was going to get paid. He worked all day in the heat, hoping to get paid. Like, hey, I may not get paid. This white dude may look at me and go, get out of here, bro. I'm not paying you anything. Or he might help me or he might not. He worked an entire day for the prospect of potentially being paid. And I was like, let's talk to the foreman. So we go and get the foreman. The foreman's like, no, man, too bad. And I'm like, this can't happen. So I go, you know what? I give him my work gloves, and I feel terrible. It was all I had. I give him my work gloves. I'm like, this is awful. Like, I felt this guilt. I walked away, and I was like, and when I gave him the work gloves, he lit up. He was like, oh, thank you. And then he walked away, and I was just thinking, we just stiffed this guy. This guy just worked all day. All I gave him was some old measly work gloves. We get in the truck, we start driving away, and I'm talking to the foreman. I'm like, that's messed up, We basically just shafted this guy, and all I gave him was work gloves. He's like, you gave him those work gloves? I was like, yeah. He's like, how much do you pay for those? I was like, $10. He goes, that's like 2 weeks worth of work for that guy. 2 weeks worth of work. He's like, you gave him more with those work gloves than I would have paid him in 2 weeks. Perspective. I walked away certainly not feeling like any kind of hero, feeling more like I can't believe that I complain about my lawn. Can't believe I'm that picky about my food. I can't believe I complain about my health care provider. The key to financial freedom is not more money. The key to financial freedom is more perspective. It's not falling into this. Because although you feel like you have money problems, the vast majority of the world actually thinks you're rich. In fact, if we're just going by definition, you are rich. I know you're not looking to group hug right now. I know you're not like that excited about it, but I mean, that's real. Like, you need to have that perspective. Now, why do we feel like we feel then? Why do I not feel rich? Why do I feel like I have money problems? Why do I feel the way that I feel? And why do I keep getting sucked into this thing? Why do I keep trying to pour more? Why do I keep spending up to my capacity, and then when I run out of capacity, pull out the card? Why do I do that? Great question. We're going to go to book of 1 Timothy, chapter 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6 was written by a man by the name of Paul, also known as the Apostle Paul. Apostle just means the guy was like a kingdom of God entrepreneur. So he started a bunch of churches. He started a bunch of works. He would go to this church. He would raise up a work. He would preach the gospel, and people would gather. And then he would raise up a leader, and then he would leave and go to other cities. And so he was just always on the move. The Apostle Paul is a guy, when I read the scripture, I wish I was Timothy, because Timothy's kind of like Paul's main apprentice. So whenever I read Timothy, this may be weird to you or whatever, just the way it is. I always read Timothy, I kind of imagine I'm Timothy because it's Paul kind of coaching him up. And I'm like, Paul would have been a great coach. Hanging out with Jesus may not have been as cool as you think it would have been. Because Jesus would say some wild stuff and then leave you to figure it out, you know? He'd be like, hey, if you drink my blood and eat my flesh, you know, unless you do that, you don't have any part with me. They're like, what? And then they give him a chance to explain himself, like, hey, please, you know, we think you're awesome, except we just want to know what you're talking about. And he's like, and he says it again, except he's more graphic, you know? Paul's like systematic and everything. And so I read more Paul, you know, but I follow Jesus. So anyway, so Timothy, Paul's writing to Timothy, and Timothy's young. He's like Paul's son in the faith. So Paul says to Timothy, hey, you're young. He goes, hey, don't let anybody look down on you for being young. Be courageous. He said, in fact, be an example. You can be young, be an example. Don't let anybody, just because they're older than you, look down on you. You could set an example. Hey, you could be young, Timothy, and have this figured out. There could be people twice your age still trying to do this. You could figure this out. You could be wise. You could be an example as a young person to not fall into this trap. And he says, here's what I want you to preach, and here's what I want you to talk about. And then he talks about true riches. Here's what he says, 2 Timothy 6, starting in verse 6. He said, yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. Godliness, look at this. Godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. That's huge. Because guess what? I don't have control of great wealth, and neither do you. You do not. You're an awesome businessman, your business can be lost. You're making an upward trajectory, the economy can go bad. Your product can go cold. Another company can come in and eat you guys up. You can't control that. You know what you can't control? Godliness and contentment. Godliness and contentment is itself true wealth, a great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came in the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, then let us be content. This is perspective, you see. I didn't come to give you more money today. I came to give you more perspective. Unless you learn contentment, it'll just be another zero on your paycheck. Unless you learn contentment, the new car smell on your new title at work will wear off. Unless you learn contentment, you don't know what great wealth is. It says, but people who long to be rich, look at his language here. People who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires, then plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, look at this, craving money, have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. Here's why we don't feel good about our financial situation. Is the comparison trap. Comparison. I may have gone to Haiti not feeling real like I had all that much money because I'm comparing myself to this person, that person, until I compare myself to a guy who worked all day for a pair of gloves and felt like he had hit the jackpot. And if we fall into the comparison trap, money is just going to be something we just keep pouring out, hoping that one day there will be a cup big enough. But we're way too wise for that. We're too smart for that. We see where that's headed. It ends with me trying to find some form of outside stimulus to just get me because I've shot my appetite and it's overblown. And the crazy thing about appetites is the more you overblow them, the more that you saturate them, the less content you feel. If you actually downsized and took a step back and you said no for a while, and you did things in moderation, you would enjoy them so much more than trying to just keep filling your cup to the top. How full can I get this thing? So it's comparison. Interesting stat. I was doing some research this week, and I was looking at stats on suicide per country. The stats on suicide per country, by the way, America, you know all this. America is the wealthiest nation in the world. We have so much money, it's out of this world. Stupid, high. So we're talking in America, America's the number 50 of all the nations of the world. We're the 50th of the highest suicide rate. So per 100,000 people, little over 12 Americans commit suicide. You know where Haiti is? 153. You're 6 times more likely to commit suicide as an American than you are as a Haitian. You know how many people are below the international poverty line in Haiti? 61.7%. Well over half of the nation lives on less than $1.25 a day. Now, I'm not making an infomercial here, okay, and we're not gonna pass the bucket again. I'm trying to give you perspective. Why? Because in Haiti, everybody's low. And I'm looking at the guy next to me, his situation is as bad as mine. What are we doing? We're trolling social media to find who has it better than us so we can feel worse about our situation. We drive the neighborhood and go, man, I just wish I had one of those, and if I just had that, and if I could just get a bigger cup. The answer to financial freedom is not more money, it's more perspective. It's less comparison. This is why Paul says to Timothy, Timothy, you're young, but man, teach everybody that contentment and godliness in itself is great wealth, all by itself. Stop comparing yourself. Can you imagine if you were somehow able to not feel competitive with those around you? Can you imagine if you were somehow able to not fall into this comparison thing, to not try to keep up with or compete with or overtake your in-laws or your extended family or your coworkers or the people around you or in your neighborhood? You somehow could have contentment and godliness and be okay with it. Now here's what Paul says to Timothy. He goes, here's what happens when that happens. Verse 17. It says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud or to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up treasures as a good foundation for the future, so they will experience true life. Now, I got to wrap up because I'm being played off, all right? So I'm going to finish this real quick. And I told her to do it, so it's not her fault. This is like the Oscars, like, shut up, bro, all right? So I got 4 minutes and I'm done, okay? Well played. The 2 most important principles of your financial life when it comes to the Bible are stewardship and generosity. Stewardship and generosity. Next week, we're going to talk about stewardship. I'm going to talk about 4 steps to financial freedom. 4 steps that will either help you to become financially free or will enable you to stay financially free. Okay? We're going to talk about that next week, the stewardship side. Today, though, as we talk about generosity, you want to be generous. You do. In fact, I want you to think about the time in your life you were most generous. Think about that right now. Think about that time. You gave something away. You could have kept it for yourself. You could have spent it on yourself. You could have done it for yourself, but you did it for somebody else. And the time in your life, I want you to think about that. When was the time in your life you were most generous? How did you feel? You felt significant. You felt great. You felt powerful. You felt liberated. You felt free. It was more of a lasting, you felt divine. You felt connected to God. We're created to do this. And Paul says to Timothy, look, make sure people don't fall into this. He said, look, here's how you do it. Contentment. Just if I could just be content with what I have. Could you imagine if you were like the one person or the one couple in the world that could be content? If you could actually be content here, can you imagine that? if you could be content there, and God would promote you and you would work hard and you would achieve, and somehow you'd be able, you would be just fine doing that. You'd be just fine doing that. You didn't have to keep filling it up and you didn't have to keep up. Could you imagine if you were that free? You know how free you'd be? You'd be so free. The time in your life you were most generous is the time in your life you felt most free, you felt most divine. Let me tell you. Paul says it's real simple. I'll tell you how to do it. It's not one more promotion. It's contentment with godliness. And then you discover great wealth. Let's be individuals and families and churches that don't take ourselves and remove ourselves from the world and go, we live in the culture. Nobody sees this these days. We got to show it to them. And what it enables us to do is to be generous with our lives, to be generous with our money, and to live in a place of freedom and joy that God intended for you to live. He did not intend for you to be strapped so tight and live so tight that you have no peace. And that's why when we put ourselves in these positions, it is destructive to our marriages, destructive to our emotions. And we end up doing the counterintuitive thing, which is to try to keep going up. Let's do this. Let's do what Paul said and what Paul told Timothy, commanded Timothy to teach. Godliness with contentment is great wealth. Lord,